welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast, along with my partners, Brian Siegler, Shelton Moss, Jonathan Talley. I am Curtis Wilson, and this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast is brought to you by Dr. Lord Jeremy Counts at Main Street Pharmacy. If you love this podcast, if you love the Hokies, the town of Blacksburg, make sure you are supporting Main Street Pharmacy when you make your way to town.
Whether you need prescriptions, a tube of toothpaste, or just want to stop in and say hello, let Jeremy and his team take care of you. The money you spend at Main Street Pharmacy goes towards the things you support. So next time you're in Blacksburg, head on down to 301 South Main Street. Buddy, we got a full house tonight. How you feeling?
Man, just take a good look at the screen right now, because so few is going to wreak so much havoc on Hokie Nation going forward. Tally, our full-time third co-host. Shelton, our full-time data analytics, sports analytics expert, part-time co-host. The four of us now right here at the Boundary Corner podcast. There we go. Woo! That's what we are, baby. But we got a boat ton to unload tonight. It's great having all y'all here. Everybody joining us, watching wherever you're joining us. Oh, look at this. I love it. I love it. Already some people chiming in.
Get in here. Tell your brothers, your sisters, your mama, your pastor. Everybody get in here. The White Vic, shout out. He in here.
The White's with us tonight. And we are going to go through a bunch of stuff. Obviously, we got a ton of football stuff to know. We got a Fontel Mines interview later on tonight. But we're going to start with basketball for a couple reasons. A, the Hokies have one game left. The ACC tournament is next week. The women start play tomorrow in the ACC tournament. So, Sheldon, welcome back. How's the road been, brother?
It's been okay. You know, it's been kind of an up and down basketball season. I know the men beat Louisville a couple of nights ago. They had me worried there for a sec. They were down up by like 3 with like 10 minutes left, and then went on like a 14-0 run to get the dub. But yeah, it's been a tough season, man. But we'll see what can happen. I mean, it's March, so anything can happen in the AC tournament.
Anything can happen. And before we get into we're kind of going to deep dive the season tonight. Shelton's been pulling data points, and we've got some questions we want to ask him and kind of figure out, why is this team where they are? Because as we sat here just before we got on, Tally was mentioning how it's like, what, the football team's your daughter, you'll never spank her, but the basketball team's like your son, and you'll take the behind the woodshed.
Beat his ass.
So we're trying to figure out why. But before we get into all of that, I want to talk about actually some really good news. And Sheldon, I'll let you go a little bit more on this, but got a pretty big prospect commitment just the other day. AJ Swinton, small forward, 6'5", 185, from Sierra Canyon High School.
Beast. For
those who do not know, that is where Bronny James plays. Mm-hmm. That is a really good basketball high school. Mm-hmm. 3-star by 247, a composite 4-star, right at the top 100 in the composite. Shelton, you've had a chance to kind of look at this guy. I mean, what does he bring for the Hokies in the future?
Yeah, very talented kid, athletic. Like you said, he is a 3-star, 4-star, depending on, kind of what metric you look at. I mean, I think once you get outside like the top 80, top 90, it's kind of, there's no real difference. But he is very projectable at the college level. 6'6" or thereabouts. He's listed as a small forward. I think he can fill sort of like a Justin Mutz type of role. But he's got some Darius Maxim, and that he's, long and obviously athletic. I was looking at a quote as far as, how he committed. Obviously, he used to play at DeMatha, which was where Mike Jones was formerly the head coach. So that was kind of the connection there. Now an assistant, Mike Jones, is on the team. And there's a quote from AJ where he said, talking about Mike Young's offense, he said, it's a free-flowing offense. They share the ball, and you can tell that they're well coached from the sets they run in the half court. So I think that kind of gives you a sense of like, this is a guy that's going to come in. He's not just like some freak athlete that's going to dominate. Like, he's going to play within the offense, very high IQ player. So I'm happy to see that. I think despite his high ranking, he is more of like a developmental guy. Maybe you redshirt him for 1 year and then kind of get him acclimated after that. So there's probably going to be some sort of, developmental development there. He's not a guy that's going to come in, I don't think, and just star right away. Not like a Rodney Rice type of recruit. But he is very, very good, and I think the future of Virginia Tech basketball, especially at the guard position, is looking very good for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And when we look at a guy like him, I don't think really has Mike Young really had a player with this type of length that also has this level of athleticism since he's been at Virginia Tech.
I mean, well, maybe Joe Bamisile, but I think the difference was, Bamisile was not a great shooter. He's more of a slasher, and obviously, he wasn't getting the playing time he wanted, so he transferred out. You had, Darius Maddox, who I think Swin is a little bit longer, and obviously we don't know what he's going to provide so far yet, but I would imagine he's a little bit more athletic and physical than Maddox, just what it seemed like on watching tape. And then Rodney Rice is probably the best comp, just in terms of like his physical skill sets, the length particular, guy that can kind of clog up passing lanes and stuff like that. So I mean, Rice is probably, like I said, the best comp, but it's a very much like we're not used to getting these types of recruits typically under the Mike Young era.
Now I'm gonna go off script a little bit here. Now, Shelton, glad you're here. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
I get on Facebook the other day, and I don't even know if this person was a Virginia Tech fan. I see in a big banner, Bronny James is looking at Virginia Tech. Do you want to talk about that, sir?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I just I'm hearing some rumors that his teammate AJ Swin, he wants to play with his teammate AJ Swin over at Sierra Canyon.
Okay.
I cannot confirm or deny those rumors. All I can say is, check your sources. Make sure you look at reputable organizations.
You is our damn source.
Sheldon's not sharing that.
Yeah, I just say always, look for the blue check. Look for the blue check on Twitter, or the orange check or the square. I don't know what it is. Whatever you.
Check your legacy check marks before you start writing the article.
I'm about to go on Twitter and say, from my source, I heard Bronny is coming.
Oh, God.
Whatever y'all want to put down, that's what I'm putting.
All right. So obviously, Tally gonna be getting us in trouble real quick. Easy peasy.
I like that.
Huh?
Spicy.
Well, I heard LeBron James has eligibility. He's going to come play with Bronny at Tech. I mean, let's just throw everything.
He's got 4 years.
Might as well. Shit.
All right. Let's go this way. We got some now questions. Let's get into this season and let's talk about some things about why have we been 17-13, and especially why has it been since an 11-1 start? Is the team now 6-12 in the last 18? Brian, I know you got one right out the gate you want to hit Sheldon with.
Yeah, this one kind of has been rolling around for a while. I know we got the dub on the road against Louisville, but this team has struggled mightily in ACC play in the road contest. When you looked at the data, Sheldon, do you see any metrics that have any sort of statistical significance in terms of variation from home games versus away games?
I don't think there's a huge variation. I was looking at some numbers before the podcast, and I found that Virginia Tech was about middle of the pack in the ACC in terms of net increase in efficiency at home compared to on the road, meaning, they're not that much more efficient at home. So I think, some of the road struggles might be a little bit overblown, just in the sense that, like, they're in every game. They're just losing the close games. They're not finishing it out. With Boston College, they went to overtime. Clemson, they lost on the last second 3. So I think there's been some bad luck involved, honestly. But I guess the thing that stands out the most is probably just the shooting splits. Like, Tech has been a pretty bad shooting team on the road. We saw it against Clemson, which was probably their best defensive performance of the season, but it coincided with their worst offensive performance of the year. Syracuse, I think they shot 3 of 19 from 3, and one of those was in garbage time. So, when you're on the road, a shooting team like Tech that's, kind of built around 3-point shooting, sometimes you get into a different environment and you're just not as comfortable as a shooter in different gyms. So that's probably my best guess. But outside of that, I just think it's an inability to close games down the stretch, really, is what it boils down to.
Well, also talk about, just kind of staying on what you're doing. I know you've done a lot of research and that's kind of your thing. I guess what about the point of emphasis when we're talking, layups and offensive rebounds.
Oh God, layups.
Things like that. I mean, I think if we deep dive into that, that tells a little bit of a story as well.
Yeah. Please make me feel like my eyes haven't fooled me all year, Sheldon, on that, because I swear every time I see this team, we are missing literally point blank shots, whether defended or not defended. So what's the data say?
So the data says your eyes, unfortunately, might be fooling you a little bit. I think we rank like 6th in the ACC in terms of layup percentage. Like, it's around like 60% converting layups, which, that's kind of middle of the road. I think we've had a few games, like I said, this year where it's just gone completely off the rails. Like, Georgia Tech, you just can't make anything. So that probably like kind of exacerbates like your perception of how good we are in that category. And I don't have the data for this, but maybe if you look at like conference splits, it's different than, the entire season when Tech was obviously playing well during the non-conference portion of the season. So I honestly we're going to talk about this a little bit, but my biggest concern is just the lack of, getting to the free throw line. Like Tech is, traditionally under Mike Young, one of the worst teams in terms of drawing free throws. And you can see that this year they were like bottom 40, I think, in free throw rate.
In the country?
Yeah, in the country, yes.
Oh God.
So, but that's kind of par for the course of Mike Young. We just don't really attack the basket a lot. And so it's hard to, draw fouls and obviously get yourself in, scoring situations like that, get the other team in foul trouble. That's my biggest concern. Like, I think the layups kind of, they come and go, but the lack of getting to the line is a big issue for me.
Well, yeah,
is that kind of par for the course with the motion offense versus more dribble drive type offense?
Basically, yeah. So Mike Young doesn't really recruit slashers. He wants guys that can shoot, that can dribble, that can handle the ball. He's always emphasized skill over athleticism, traditionally in recruiting. Not always, but that's usually the case. So obviously, with a motion-based offense, you're moving the ball, you're passing around. You want to get 3-pointers and post-ups. Those are typically the two shots that that this offense kind of revolves around. It's not like where you just give a guy the ball. He's going to go create up the dribble. That happens a little bit, with Tyrese Radford, a guy like that. But for the most part, he wants to move the ball, wants to pass the ball. So you're just not going to see a lot of dribble penetration.
Well, so in terms of those layup percentages, we're looking at probably an outlier bias on those like handful of games where it just looks pretty awful.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I'm looking here. I just pulled up the Miami, box score, and absolutely right, Sheldon. I mean, they shot the free throw. They shot 19 free throws that game, where Tech's only shooting 7. They go 15 of 19. Tech goes 4-6 from the line. That's a 6-point game. So to your point right there, I mean, that is a massive difference. And we can look at the stats and say right there, well, you lost by 6. You shoot more free throws, closer game, maybe a win. Let me ask this, though, because something I did a little research on. Yes, I did do research in basketball. Yeah, feel good about myself. Is I decided to go through to find rebound margins. And basically, Tech ranked 194 in the country, basically 0, basically 50-50.
That's pitiful.
It's pitiful, but it's not par for the course. But then I look at a game like the Miami game, another great example. Miami only out-rebounded us by 1. But the significant, it looks like, how big was our differential in offensive rebounding for this year?
For offensive rebounding, I think we are usually middle of the pack. I can pull up the numbers real quick. So we are, about a little bit below average, 19 ACC in terms of offensive rebounding.
Okay.
So, not great, like you said.
Yeah. And then 194 is slightly under, roughly middle of the country. But if you're saying 9th, I can only imagine where that is in the aspects of the country. And again, it was some games, and again, my eyes aren't fooling me because you're giving me the data backing it up. There were some games it looks like they just didn't want to get in after rebounds. Mm-hmm. It was just like, I understand a long rebound is what it is. Everybody here has played some sort of basketball or played pickup games where somebody shoots a shot, it's a long rebound. Ain't nothing you can do about that. But it's when you're seeing the ball right there and people not crashing. And that's where it's like, come on, guys. And I know, what do you attest that to? Is it just the coaching style? Is it just the bodies we have?
I would say it's probably influenced a little bit of both. When it comes to those sorts of splits, like, turnovers, free throws, rebounds, a lot of it is based on the scheme and the style. It's no different than football. Like, are you a big play offense? If you're a quarterback who plays in a big play offense, you're probably gonna have a low completion percentage, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad quarterback. It just means that you're gonna go for like the all or nothing types of throws. So with rebounding, it's probably just, a strategy. I don't know what Mike Young's strategy is on rebounding, but my guess is he probably doesn't want guys crashing the boards too hard. Just as one example, I don't know if you guys watch NBA, but the rates of offensive rebounding in the NBA are actually at historical lows. And the reason for that is because a lot of teams just want to get back in on defense. They don't want to give up transition opportunities, because what happens is if you crash the glass and you don't get the rebound, that allows the offense to get out in transition and potentially score on the other side. So that's kind of where the strategy part plays into it. It's just kind of, his the way that, a coach likes to play. So yeah.
So pretty much, like, I'm a Laker fan, so I guess watching the Lakers and watching AD, he's up around the 3-point line a lot. With him being a 7-footer, he's up around the 3-point line a lot more than I want him to be. And I think that kind of goes the same way with the Hokies, somebody like Grant Basile, because he shoots the ball so well. He's up around that 3-point line a lot, either looking for a shot or setting a pick for somebody else to get a shot. So I think similar to what you're saying now, Shelton, is that, when he's there, I mean, you got to get back, because you're pretty much playing safety to get back if they get that rebound, because they're going to get out in transition. So when you have your big man that stretch the floor like that, you don't have your big man rebounding. Is that kind of what you see?
Yes, that's a great point, and one that I didn't even think of. But yes, if you have a Tech plays small anyway. Like, you got Mutsu 6'7" at the 4, Basile 6'8" at the 5, but he's really more of like a stretch 4. If Basile's at the 3-point line, well, he's not getting offensive rebounds. So I mean, he shoots a lot of threes. He's one of the best 3-point shooting big men in the country for his size.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at guys who are 6'8", there are not a lot of 6'8" guys who shoot threes like Basile. So I mean, of course, the more he's shooting threes, the less rebounds he's getting, and that's just a stylistic preference.
Very nice. So I think the next thing I did put this in, and I'm hoping you had a chance to look it up, was give me the best plus minus guys. Give me the top 3. Give me the bottom 3 as far as that goes with the team, because that's a stat it's tough for me to find. I don't have all the data, but I know plus minus is always telling, because, okay, if a guy's a plus, it's like you can put him on the floor anytime, any situation, it's going to come out a net positive. If a guy's a net is negative, well, what's wrong? Can we not score, or is he not good defensively? So who's our guys there? Not targeting anybody, but just kind of painting that picture.
Well, I'd say definitely Basile's the best, just because of his ability to score from multiple levels, and defensively as well. He's going to get a lot of rebounds, and like all those box score stats that kind of juice his advanced metrics and stuff like that. Mutz is up there too. Obviously, Couture. I think Couture's a little bit different because he's efficient, but he also does so many things that don't show up in a box score. So his value is not necessarily always reflected in statistical metrics. And there's, I think, Padula, kind of middle of the pack. Like, he scores a lot, but he's not very efficient. Kind of a high volume 3-point shooter. Has not shot the ball well from 3 this year. I think he's played a little bit too much hero ball. Shot selection is a little bit hit or miss. And then if you look at the bottom, I think MJ Collins has struggled. Freshman kind of hit a wall sometimes. His 3-point shot hasn't really been there. Offensively, he's not a guy that the defense is really going to key in on. So he's one guy that I think obviously you can understand, like, there's going to be some growing pains as a freshman. You come in, and he was always going to be like more of a developmental guy, because you expected Rice to be there, filling in at the backup point guard spot, and you figure Maddox as well. If he hadn't had that family situation with Rice and Maddox in there as guards, Collins would not be getting the minutes that he's getting, and same for Camden as well. So it's just kind of a situation where the lack of guard depth has forced younger guys that are not ready for the minutes, like Collins and Camden, to step up into roles that they should not be playing in. So,
yeah, let me ask this. So, our official luck ranking, what is that right now?
It is at, I believe, 340th. I'll double check to confirm.
Okay.
So everyone knows, there's 358 teams in the NCAA Division I.
340 out of 358?
358.
They added 5 more. They added 5 more this year. So we're up to 363. It keeps going up.
Okay.
And we officially rank
340. So like bottom 20, essentially.
All right. Can you talk a little bit more about how that's how they derive that and how that's affected the Hokies?
Yeah, so it's kind of a tricky subject. I think there's a lot of I guess maybe you might say frustration between like the sort of like analytics crowd versus the eye test crowd. With a metric like luck, it's basically just what percent of your close games are you winning relative to all the other games. So if you have a really bad record in close games, your luck metric is going to be bad. If you're very good in close games, generally speaking, your luck is going to be very good. Tech has been very unfortunate this year. They are 1-5 in conference games decided by 5 points or less. Whereas you look at a team like Pitt, they are second place in the ACC, I think, and they are 6-1 in games decided by 5 points or less. So you just look at that differential right there. I mean, that's the difference of the standings. Like that's all there is to it.
Well, let me just tell you something, Shelton. Virginia Tech has a bad luck ranking in all sports for a whole lot of years. If you go back and look at some football games, our luck rating is at the bottom too. But go continue.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on a whole tangent about that. But I think typically with stats like this, you have to kind of get like a large sample size, like look over multiple years of data. Tech was pretty unfortunate with luck last season until the ACC tournament, where just kind of that stretched in late February, early March, where kind of turned it all around. This year's team has not seen such a turnaround, and I think that could partly be due to personnel, partly due to coaching, and obviously some luck involved as well. So with a stat like that, I mean, Ken Pom, who created the stat, has said like it's not a perfect stat. There's no such thing as a perfect stat. There's always going to be some sort of balance of personnel, coaching decisions, and all that. Who you're playing, matchups, all that stuff. So it kind of plays into it. I would hope that it would improve next year. If it does not, if we're 340th next year, then I would have some serious reservations.
Then it's more reservations about the coaching staff. It's like it can't continuously be bad luck without something being on the coaching staff there. And by the way, Sheldon, it's not 20%. We're in the bottom 8% of luck. We're literally, I did the math on that. I mean, it's just brutal to see. But like you say, where does it come? Where does it get to a point where it's not luck and it's exactly you are who you are? You can't close games out. You struggle in those situations, and that's what we've seen so much this year. And I think it's so much. It's not so much. We lose a close game to Miami. Tally said it on here 10 days ago. Miami's a good team. You lost to them by 6. Okay, it is what it is. It's the Georgia Techs. It's the Boston Colleges. It's struggling with the Notre Dame. Who is the worst? I mean,
I think Shelton brought up a good point when he said he talked about last year's team, and it kind of takes us to our next point as well. He talked about, we had some contributors last year that stepped up in crunch time and pretty much, won us the ACC championship. So another point that we'll ask you, Shelton, who do you think we missed the most off of a team like last year's team? You had a Storm Murphy there. You had Kevin Luma, Aline. Who do you think we missed the most?
Yeah, so that's actually a good setup for the next stat I had. So I think one of the most underrated stats from last year's team, during the stretch run where Tech started to win, I think they finished 13-3, something like that in their last 16, whatever it was. During that stretch, Storm Murphy averaged 20 minutes per game. So if you have a point guard averaging 20 minutes per game, that does that's huge for him in terms of just his ability to stay fresh, not be fatigued. You had Sean Padula come off the bench. I mean, there were multiple games last year where Sean Padula played more minutes than Storm Murphy. So that kind of 1-2 punch at point guard really helped them a lot in terms of just preserving their legs. Whereas you look at this year's team, I mean, Padula's playing literally the entire game, and Rice, he's only going to give you a few minutes there. Padula's pretty much the only polished point guard you have. So I think if I were to answer your question, I actually think Naheem Aline was an underrated miss, and I say that like I owe him an apology because I was kind of overlooking how much we'd miss him. I obviously didn't anticipate losing Rodney Rice and Darius Max from the majority of the season, but Aline is a guy that's he's a good defender. He can shoot the three well, not as better than a lot of people gave him credit for. He can score a little bit. He can drive a little bit. He was a guy that just based on our injuries, we'd love to have a guy like that. And then obviously Storm Murphy, I think it's just not that he's, has a higher ceiling than Padula, but just the fact that he played Mike consistent for multiple years, the fact that he was experienced, a fifth-year senior, and kind of just the leadership aspect, I think was also missing from this year's team.
Yeah, looking at Alina, it feels like this team is missing that kind of 3-and-D type player on the wing. So I could definitely see we're having him on board, especially when you look at Maddox being out for an extended period of time. You can see there's a big hole there. So I could definitely see where that would be big. Let's pivot a little bit because we got one game to go in the regular season. Then we get into the ACC tournament. I don't think anyone's foreseeing a big run like we saw last year out of this team. But, what do you think this team could do in the ACC tournament?
It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough because you're most likely going to be an 11 seed. You'd be matched up against the 14, which would be Notre Dame right now in the first round matchup, which, I think Tech matched up very well against Notre Dame, and the Irish have been pretty bad this season. That's fine. The problem is if you want to make a deep run, you got to win 5 games in 5 nights. And that's just, I cannot see that happening at all. So, maybe they shocked me. At 2011, UConn did it, but they had Kemba Walker in their team. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's the best comparison there. It's just, the thing is, if you're a glass half full type of person, there's really no one in this league that scares me. Just from what we've seen from Tech, like they can beat anyone, they can lose to anyone. Like I don't look at any team and it's like, oh my God, like if we play them, we're screwed. Like no, this is not. It's not a great league. I think you can beat any team on any given night. So from that perspective, I guess if you're an optimist, you'd say, yeah, Tech could make a deep run, but so could all the other 14 teams.
That's true. And right now, the game with Florida State on Saturday afternoon does hold between the 11 and the 12 seed. And I think the 12 seed is going to play Georgia Tech, who we've already lost to once. But who do we play out of it? If Tech were to win next Tuesday, and that's one reason we're not recording next Tuesday, folks, is because when I looked at the schedule, it was like, well, we can bring Shelton on, we can talk about this. Wait a second. No, we don't get a bye this year because we can't be one of the best 9 teams in the ACC. But where is it looking like, Shelton? Let's say we land the 11. We play Notre Dame in the first. Who are we going to match up against going, forward? What's the path? Yeah,
so you would match up against the 6th seed, which currently is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that'd be NC State. Like I said, they lost NC State without Hunter Couture back in January at home by a few points. Again, like I said, you can beat anyone on any given night. This is a topic for another day, but I don't think the ACC is good at all this year. I really don't. You got 5 teams. 5 teams maybe that'll make the tournament. UNC's not going to make it unless they beat Duke on Saturday. It's not a great conference. So from that perspective, anything can happen.
This is a year of turnover in the ACC after what happened last year when people felt like a couple of teams got shafted not getting put in the tournament, and then you look and there's 2 in the Final Four, 4 in the Sweet 16, and the bad part was every ACC team won the first round except Tech last year. They went 7-1 in the first round or something like that, which was insane. But, I think overall, as we kind of, we're putting the bow on it. We're 30 minutes in now, about where I thought we'd be. But it seems like it's not just one aspect. It's not getting to the free throw line enough. It's being slightly negative in offensive rebounds. It's missing players. It's, to my chagrin, it's not layups. I was hoping you'd be like, we're dead last in layups. And I can be like, well, there's a reason we don't make short shots.
Yeah.
But are y'all feeling that way, fellas? That it's not like one thing. It's all these little things that basically it wasn't all 5 or 6 at every game. It was always 3 or 4, and we lost that game. Brian?
Yeah, I think some of it's, Shelton's spoken to it, but being stretched a little bit thinner than I think we anticipated, especially in the guard field there. I think we felt not good about that area of the team coming into the year in terms of depth. And then obviously that got significantly worse with the Rice injury. And then, you had Maddox go down. So there's just been some inconsistency with guys playing outside there. And, you combine that with a little bit of inconsistency here and there, again, not getting to the free throw line, not being able to rebound as much as you'd like. And I think just the combination of those things has really kind of put us behind the 8 ball in some games, especially as we try to close some close ones out.
Tally, as you shake your head.
I want to remain optimistic about the basketball team, but one word, man, effort. Like when I watch some games, I don't, I love Mike Young. I love what he's brought to the team, but I feel like effort's a coaching thing. And I just watch them play sometimes. When you talk about those long rebounds and we don't have anybody going for them, or we don't have anybody, getting on the floor, or just, fighting for that extra possession, it's an effort thing. You got to have the coaching style has to demand that. And I feel like that hadn't been there. So again, I like Mike Young, so I'm going to lay off of him tonight. I'm going to watch him. I'm going to let him finish this year.
He won the ACC last year. He gets a 3-year reprieve regardless.
I'm gonna let him live tonight, but I'm gonna be watching your ass close, Mike.
He's watching it. Sheldon, I'm gonna let you close this segment out. For you, you've been to games, you've watched a ton of games this year, you've looked at the data. What are your 1 or 2 points to say the reason this team isn't 24-7 or 23-8, make it into the NCAA tournament with ease is because
of, I think, to boil it down, injuries and defense, man. I mean, I'm not big on making excuses, but you miss Rice for a little bit, you miss Couture for a little bit, you miss Maddox for a little bit. Those misses add up, and I don't think it's the sole reason. Certainly not that Tech is in the position they're in. I think their defense has absolutely fallen off a cliff over the past couple months. They're 128th in KenPom defense. I mean, there's only like 70 major conference teams. Like that's not good enough. So part of that could be, shortage of depth. Maybe guys are getting tired. Mike has never been a great, defensive coach. So, you give him a little bit of a free pass there, but I just think it's a combination of, defense being bad. The 3-point shooting wasn't there. I think Padula is still learning how to be a more polished point guard. Like I said, shot selection I question sometimes, leadership I question sometimes. I look at a guy like Padula, I just don't see that sort of like floor general leadership all the time, kind of what Tally was saying. And Mike is very hands-off as a coach from my perception of him. Like he's not going to micromanage the offensive sets. He's just going to go out and let guys play, and they got to make plays. And I just don't think we've had enough of that this season. So the good news is we're not far off. We've lost a lot of close games this year. We get healthy next year, get some recruits in, we can be rolling. But this season's just been sort of like a Murphy's Law type of year where everything kind of goes wrong.
And the only player not coming back next year is Justin Mutz, correct?
Correct. Assuming the only player who cannot come back.
Cannot come back. Yes, cannot. Awesome. All right. Well, let's flip over. Let's talk real quick about the women's hoop team who will play tomorrow evening down in Greensboro for the ACC women's tournament. And over the last couple of weeks, some really great moments. And I mean, I got to see the Kitley Dagger down at UNC where they had not played a good game. And she comes off that for some reason. And I'm still trying to figure this out watching that defensive set. Kitley's one of obviously the best player in the ACC. We'll talk about it in a moment. One of the best players in the country. How do you come off of her in that situation? It's just like, because the girl, she's looking at her and she looks left and Kitley comes around, explain that. It didn't make any sense.
I mean, I wasn't in the huddle, man. It looked like it looked like they miscommunicated on some sort of switch. I don't know why you wouldn't, have all eyes locked on her. It's just, I don't know. I mean, they went to the player who's cutting to the top of the 3-point line, and kind of left her there open. I just
they forgot about the best player in the ACC.
Well, that's what happened when you have multiple threats on the floor.
True.
And you got Georgia there, you got Kitley. I mean, they've got a good, solid team. She is the best player in the ACC. Of course, she won the award, but you got other all ACC players on that team as well. So, man, it fucks you up. You can't zone in on one person, but it looked like a miscommunication, like Shelton said. I mean, you kind of seen the players look at each other like, what were you doing? What were you doing? So I think it was just a miscommunication on the switch.
That's the way it looks
and Kitley went out there and she took over the all-time points record as well while in that game. So that was a big game all around. And then they turned around and closed it out in that trap game against Georgia Tech. and that took them to the best finish for the Hokies women's basketball history. That's a bunch of big moments kind of happened in the last week for that women's team.
I think this team is really peaking at the right time. They had some, I wouldn't say struggles, but some ups and downs relative to their potential. I think we all knew what the potential of this team was coming to the season. But they've really started clicking. You can tell Georgia Amore is playing a lot better. She's distributing a lot better. She had a stretch where she couldn't miss from three. Kitley's, obviously done a great job. You've got, bench support from Deasia Gregg, Taylor Guyman, who historically has been, kind of like a sort of back end guard who's dealt with some injuries this year, but she's come off the bench and done a pretty nice job in her role. So, I mean, everything's clicking. You got depth, you got the star talent at the top. This team is really playing to their full potential.
Yep. Tally, you already mentioned Georgia was first team, Kitley Player of the Year, first team. And then take a look at the grad transfer with Taylor Sewell. Shelton, you said it a few weeks ago, Tally, you said it last week, and it's clearly there. They got some really good players out of the portal that has really complemented the top two players. And, right now, I looked this up today on ESPN. They are a number 2 projected seed. We got away from, I shared with y'all the other day, the South Carolina bracket, and we have been moved to the Indiana bracket.
Yep.
You said it a few weeks ago, Sheldon. You thought this is an Elite 8 team. If we stay in the Indiana bracket, dare you say, could they take the step and go?
They definitely could. Now, that being said, Indiana is very, very good. Like they are. If you look at some of like the the metrics, like they're absolutely a top 3 team in the country. I think Tech is more like top 8, top 9, somewhere in there. But yeah, getting out of the South Carolina bracket, I will say, is huge because they are by far they are better than Georgia. If you're not a huge women's basketball fan, like they are better than Georgia in football this year. Like they are. Yeah. 27-0, whatever. Like every game they win by 30 points. It's ridiculous. So you definitely want to avoid them at all costs, as not see them until as late as possible in the tournament.
Yep. And for the ladies, again, they're going to be playing the winner of the Boston College Miami game. That game, I believe, might be wrapped up already. So we may know who the winner is. Somebody can effort that while I'm efforting. But either way, it's been a great season. Clearly they will. I think even a screw up tomorrow night, they're still going to be hosting a regional in Blacksburg. We discussed it. Dear God, just don't let some team shoot out of their minds from 3-point range in that time frame, because that's the only thing that stopped it last year. So has that game ended?
The Boston College Miami game?
Boston College Miami.
No, it's still going on. About 5 minutes left.
Yep.
Yeah.
Miami's up 71-62.
Okay. Well,
so getting some chalk.
It looks like Miami should hold on. But so again, that's going to be tomorrow night on the ACC Network, 8:00. I'll definitely try to catch it. It's bedtime here. Tally knows. Tally texted me like, "Hey, can we jump on real quick, dude? It's bedtime in this house for the kids. I'm in a war right now." So, yeah. So look at y'all chuckling. Brian, you know it. Brian, you've been there.
Yeah, I just got the one though.
You got one, 3. So what we're going to do now, y'all, Shelton, appreciate all the insights, all the stuff. You're not leaving because we want your opinions on some of this football stuff we're going to be talking about here. We are going to get into the Fontel Mines interview after we take a quick pause from our digital partners. As we take a quick break, we'd like to tell you about getting your free website report from our digital partner, Grassroots Digital Marketing Studio. They'll tell you how your website ranks on Google, on-site SEO, and social media. No commitment to buy anything. You can get your free report by visiting grassrootsdigitalstudio.com/free-website-report. Now back to the episode. All right, Sheldon had to step out for just a second. He'll be back in just a moment. But last Tuesday afternoon, myself, Mr. Siegler, and Mr. Tally got to sit down for about 30 minutes with Virginia Tech wide receiver coach Fontel Mines. It was awesome. He was awesome. He celebrated a birthday. Coach, happy birthday again this week. Brian, let's press the tape and let's show the Boundary Corner listeners what Coach Mines had to say about some of the things we asked him.
Pay attention.
Yes, listeners, tonight we have a very special interview here with Jonathan Talley, here with Brian Siegler. Boys, we got in the green room right now Coach Fontel Mines. Let's go ahead. Let's get him in here because we've got some questions to ask this man.
Fellas, what's happening, man? How's everybody doing?
Hey, Coach, how you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful, man. Wonderful. Enjoying myself.
We are doing great here. Me and Brian in the RVA, Tally down in Alabama today. And, man, we got some questions to ask you. How's everything doing? Y'all been good?
Busy. Busy is good. We spent the weekend in Charlotte for a coach's clinic. I had the family come up with me, my wife and my son, and we enjoyed Charlotte for a couple of days. And we'll be in Richmond this weekend. We'll be in Northern Virginia this weekend talking some ball, man. Building those relationships, being around some high school coaches. So, super excited, man. I love the off season. And then shoot, spring ball is right around the corner.
It is, man.
Yeah, so you're heading to the Stomping Grounds this weekend,
I'm
right?
heading to the crib, baby.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, let's talk about this first. You've had a bunch of your coaching career at your alma mater, Hermitage High School, and here in the RVA. You also happen to be a notable football alumnus of University of Virginia.
Yeah.
When you got the call that the Hokies wanted you to come on board as wide receivers coach.
Man, it was just the way it all kind of happened, man, was kind of surreal, to be honest with you. I had some connections here on this staff with Coach Bowen, just from working at Old Dominion. And I met Coach Pry on a Sunday at the coaches convention. No, I'm sorry, I met him on a Monday night at the coaches convention. Him and James Franklin were together, and we got a chance to exchange information. And he asked me would I be interested in interviewing for the job that next day. Didn't have any of my material, didn't have a suit. It was probably about 8, 9 o'clock that night. And, so me, I just kind of get my stuff together and started preparing myself. And it was awesome though, man. Just really always been right, Virginia Tech. It was either you went to Virginia or went to Virginia Tech. So for me, it hit home because, my best friend graduated from Virginia Tech, Dwayne Brown, and we were recruited together. We grew up together. He was my wedding. So one of my close friends, and the person I called, his reaction, and we talked about it, excited, man. It was a little different. I'll be the first to tell you, it was a little different. It was definitely a no-brainer.
It's great, Dwayne, because you had a lot of you played with you at Hermitage. You went to Tech, to UVA back in the early 2000s. That's this. It's just a little fun. How did you catch from your four? You with Twitter? Wait a minute, Fontel's going to Tech to coach?
You know what? Not too bad. It was probably more so some Twitter people kind of Twitter was on fire in Charlottesville, but my guys got it, man. Especially I have a lot of former teammates in the coaching circle, and they kind of understand the nature of this business and the opportunity I have for professional advancement, and an opportunity to take care of my family and provide for my son. And that was the number one thing for me. And then really an opportunity to stay in the Commonwealth. I mean, you talk about Virginia and what this place means to me and what this state means to me, and it's the world, man. So it was something I couldn't pass up.
Yeah. So, Coach, we know that over your 13-year career, you've had some stops all around the Mid-Atlantic. East Carolina, JMU, Richmond, Old Dominion. We probably can go on and on. But with you being at Tech now, how has that helped you jump right into your day-to-day job and recruiting? Because we know like Virginia recruiting has turned up a little bit.
Yeah, for me, it was a seamless transition. You talk about James Madison, you talk about University of Richmond, you talk about East Carolina, and Old Dominion. I was responsible for recruiting the Richmond area. I was responsible for recruiting the Virginia Beach 757 area. So I've known all those coaches for the past 15 years. I've known some of those coaches since I was a player. You walk into those schools and some of those guys have an opportunity to remember coaching against me or I walk into Hermitage High School and I'm having conversations with a guy that's my former teammate. So for me, man, it made all the sense in the world. I was already recruiting a lot of those guys. Some I couldn't get. Now it gave me an opportunity to really give them an opportunity to come play for me. Takai Heath comes to mind. I've probably been recruiting this kid for 2 years. Johnson, I've probably been talking to this guy for the last 2 years. Cam Fleming, I played AAU basketball with Cam Fleming's uncle. Just those connections, give kids a sense of peace. The kids, the parents. So it was good, man. It's been awesome for me.
Man, I absolutely love hearing that. And I'm gonna pivot a little bit away from that because Tally mentioned the day-to-day work. And right now, y'all are right smack dab in the middle of winter workouts. And we've seen you post Tucker Holloway, Benji Gosnell, Jalen Lane stepping up. But what is the primary focus for you during this time period for evaluating your guys during those workouts, and especially with bringing 3 new guys into the fold?
Competition, mental toughness, details. Those are the top 3 for me. And then dependability. I mean, you're asking guys to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, to be dressed and ready on the field at 6 o'clock, ready to work for an hour, and then go to class, not show up on any lists, go to weights. So it's giving me an opportunity. If I can't count on you outside of football, if guys are being late to class or missing class, there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to count on you on 3rd and 8 to run the right route. And it's also given the transfers an opportunity to really engulf themselves in our environment, right, in our culture, and to really establish themselves on who they are and to learn the playbook, to learn their teammates. So this, to me, is really the most important time for our team. But competitions, that stands alone at the top without a question.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad you mentioned transfers there, Coach, because us as fans, man, we look at things and we see things a totally different light than you guys do. But coming off of a 3-8 season, what does Coach Mines do? He goes into the portal. He pulls out 3 top 25 transfers to flip that room. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you were able to, identify what you were looking for and how you went into recruiting that room with such a quick turnaround after the season going into spring?
Yeah, the first thing that I wanted while targeting some transfers and even high school kids was I wanted guys that would come in right away, day one, and compete to start. I didn't want to recruit anybody to be a depth guy. I didn't want to recruit anybody to be a special teams guy. I wanted to bring in guys to raise the level of competition in that room, because that's going to bring the best out of all of us, myself, the returning guys, and there's no ego in this. Like that comes the business part of this, and they're all different, right? They all have a different, unique skill set. I've known Ali since Ali was 6-7 years old. I have a great relationship with him. I remember him coming to camps that we had back in Richmond. I went to school with his brother. Obviously, I was at Old Dominion with him for a year. And you talk about a guy that's proven. I mean, all 3 of them, they're proven. They played a lot of football. They've had a election. Right, that's hard to pass up. 2 of them are Virginia guys, right, from our footprint, our area, Richmond and the 757. You talk about Daquan Felton. Immediately, he brings a level of attitude, mindset, and mentality. Like,
P-Town, baby.
Like, you know what time it is, and like he's different. Like, he doesn't flinch. And then you talk about Jalen Lane, who's my silent assassin. He just comes to work every single day. He competes his butt off. I mean, he's a punt returner. He's a kick returner. He plays in the slide. He plays on the outside. So immediately, that room changes. The dynamics of that room change. You don't have to depend on a true freshman, a guy that might not be ready to play. Right now, you can kind of give guys time to develop. So I'm excited, man. We were able to get those, and not just me, man. Just the group effort. Coach Bowen, Coach Rudolph, Coach Glenn, like all those guys played a big part in that. But the relationship piece, I'm relationship built, man. The relationship piece, it meant a lot, man. I had an opportunity to see those guys, Quan on his own turf. I recruited Jalen Lane when I was at East Carolina. So I've known him. And you talk about coachable with Jalen Lane. His dad's a high school coach. I mean, the kid comes in right away. He picks up the offense. He knows what he's doing. And he just works every single day. So, that's kind of what it is for that. And that was my thought process.
Seems like from a skill set point of view, they have a lot of complementary skills in that they each kind of do different things really well. And I think that's going to be great to build on for the season for sure. But let me ask this. We're talking off season. You got spring practice starting here in a few weeks. In year one, the big focus for the team was winning every rep, that competition, right? And you've already spoken on that a little bit. While that hasn't changed for year two, what is one area of focus that you guys have kind of circled for the spring that may not have been there last year or may have been a lower priority last year?
I know it was there and it's been a priority, but you can never focus enough on the details. If the route's 4 yards, running 4 yards. If it's 6 steps, running 6 steps. If you're supposed to convert versus coverage, we need you to convert. We need our receivers to be where they're supposed to be at, right? Make the plays, make the routine plays. I have a little sense, make the layups, right? If you got an access throw to the field and the quarterback throws it to you on time, make the layup, right? That's routes on there for us. So, like, I'm putting the pressure on those guys for perfection, right? I'm asking for perfection, understanding and knowing, right, what I'm going to get is a product of competition and guys that were better than we were this last spring. That's the only goal, right? To put guys on that field that's going to be better than we were last year. And that's no knock to anybody that played last year. But if I'm not recruiting guys or recruiting talent that's going to come in and play, then I'm not doing my job.
Man, I love hearing that you talk about the details and, like, make the layups, because there's so many times in this game where there's a layup play. You make that, it's only 5 yards. Now it's 2nd and 5.
No doubt.
It makes everything easier. It makes everything easier, right?
Absolutely.
We talk about it every week, right, Curtis?
If you're making the layups in football, then eventually that team's going to guard the layups harder, and the harder stuff is going to become easier because they focus on the easy stuff. All right, let me pivot to this. And not only for you, but kind of the staff in general. What were some of the lessons learned from year one, and how are y'all approaching that going into year two?
I mean, the opportunity to learn your personnel, to learn your kids. To be honest with you, like, I didn't really get a great feel for who they were until week 4 to 5. I mean, yes, we were with them all off season in the winter. Yes, we were with them in the spring. We were with them in the summer. But you don't really truly know them until those bullets start flying in Lane Stadium in front of 65,000 people. Like, that's when you get a good vibe for, all right, this is who this kid is, right? This is our strength. This is our weakness. Let's play to this, right? This formation or this concept has been successful, or he runs this route better versus this coverage. So it gave us an opportunity to get a good feel for our guys and, try to gain some momentum down the stretch. And, we were competitive in a lot of games. I think we lost 4 games by 11 points, man. So you just talk about the difference that a year could make. It could be tremendous.
Yep, definitely, Coach. When you talk about the losing like you said, losing a couple of games by a couple of points, fans talking. We get beat up a little bit, but not as much. I tore up a little bit, not as much as probably you guys do. But learning how to win definitely was a theme in year one, both for the staff and the players. Do you feel like everything started to come together? All those elements came together, at the end of the season at that Liberty game?
I do feel like that. I feel like we hit our stride. I feel like the kids were bought in. They were bought into the game plan. They were bought into what we wanted to do. And it was never a moment where we showed up on a Sunday and those guys weren't ready to work. Mm-hmm. So I give a lot of credit to them, man. They didn't fold. There was no issues in the locker room. So you talk about culture and you talk about something to build off of, like, that's what we're going to build off of. We were able to run the ball to win the game and to seal the game and to finish the game. Guys made plays down the stretch, right? That's maturity, that's growth, and that's a lot for us to build on. And it was on the road for a very talented Liberty team.
Definitely.
We had talked about that a lot when we were looking at it. In that winning time sequence, it felt like offense, defense, special teams, they kind of made the plays that you need to make to close that thing out. Whereas a few games earlier in the year, one element was not there in the closeout, maybe another here and there in another game. But in that game, it felt like all those came together for you.
Played a complete game. You're absolutely right, man. It takes all three phases.
And I tell you, for me on that game, it was the last series where offense or defense stopped them, offense drove the field, scored.
Yeah.
They come back, defense stops them again, and then you guys on offense, your guys blocking on the outside, making catches. It's like they're not getting this ball back.
Yeah.
It ends right here.
No doubt.
And y'all knelt it down. It's like over. And
Yeah.
and as a fan, it made us feel great
Yeah.
because you like Tally said, we saw it. It was like where that first down, we hadn't got that in a couple games, and it breaks our heart. We know it hurts y'all, but it's like we kept pushing it. Love it. I know you want to ask him here.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about recruiting focus. We know in year one, the big mantra was repairing those relationships in the state of Virginia in the footprint. How did the relationships and rapport that you had from your previous stops help you on that front?
Yeah, it's trust, man. It's trust. It's guys understanding who I am as a person, who I am as a coach, believing in my coaching philosophy, and also believing in Coach Pride's philosophy. And I think a lot of guys initially, when they get hired, they see a lot of things, but they won't do it. And Coach Pride, he stood on that. He stood on the table with that. We're going to recruit this state. He said it. He meant it. And we did it. And we found ways to foster those relationships, whether it was, these clinics that we're going to do, getting on these guys' turf, guard down, spending time with them, talking ball, eating good food, and just relaxing, man. And I think that means a lot to those guys, and taking the opportunity to do that and recruit those schools, right? You talk about a school like Highland Springs, they're going to have prospects every single year. You talk about Hermitage, you go to guys in Northern Virginia, Freedom, and there's all these talented prospects in this state, right, that could be overlooked because it may look great in another state, far in Texas and Florida, and you can go get you. And I'm not saying you can't go get guys from those places, right? But if you start in the state, right, I guarantee you can find guys talented enough and willing enough to win you a lot of games when it's all said and done. And then you build in those relationships. So when that 4- and 5-star prospect comes out, right, he's got a teammate already in Blacksburg, right? He's already seen me a couple times in the school. The coach already knows what he's going to get from us. And that's really what it's about, man. It's being honest, it's being us, it's being genuine, and giving those guys an opportunity to trust us. And, that's all that Coach Pride's direction, man. Right? There's no fluff. There's no recruiting pitch. It's not us out here selling dreams. It's us out here just being real.
And that's that's, as a fan, that's refreshing, man. Like we definitely are welcoming that, even feeling that. I'm all the way down here in Alabama and I'm feeling that. I'm hopping up and down, man. You know what I'm saying? To see you guys out there. But from what I'm hearing now, you can tell me if I'm wrong. They're telling me when you come to Virginia, you got to check in with Coach Mines. That's his turf, man. They said that he is running things there.
Yeah.
But, kind of the question that I have for you is, people know you are a Virginia guy. They know you went to UVA. You've been around for a while. How much did the staff lean on your relationships? Did you have any guys that kind of came to you and were like, hey, Coach, I'm going to Hermitage today. What do I need to? Is there a certain person I need to see? Did you have anybody to lean on you?
Absolutely, man. And each pocket of the state is a little bit different, right? Recruiting Richmond is completely different than recruiting 757, right? You may have to go through 3 people in a 757 before you actually get to the kid. But that's just kind of how it is, and that's the name of the business, man. But like the relationships, they did lean on me. We have some guys that's off the field that's from Virginia, but when you just talk about, hey man, I'm going to this school, here's who you need to talk to. Or I'm going to this area, here's who you need to talk to. Here's where you need to stay, right? These are the 6 schools you need to hit this day, right? Or taking another notch, you're watching the highlight tape. This is the brand of football that these guys play, right? This is how coachable these guys have historically been. And you just look at our recruiting class, right? I think we had a guy of that total class, it was 19 state championships, right, in that one class. So you talk about recruiting winners, guys that have been well coached, guys that come here and it's going to piss them off to lose, right? And that's the kind of attitude that we need.
Oh, I love that right there. That's the mentality, man. You talk about the state championships, the guys you're bringing in, they're winners. And like you said, they don't want to lose. So I'm sure you've got some of them already joining you on campus that have already brought that to the table during the Hunger Games and during some of the workouts where it's like, I'm not losing this rep.
No
I
doubt.
don't lose these reps. I've won all these reps since I've been a freshman in high school. Let me pivot just a little bit of fun here. So if the Hokie tailgate comes back to the RVA this year, comes to Hardywood Park, just about 5 minutes from my house here, can Fontel Mines make an appearance there?
Hold on, what's the date?
Well, last year was in July.
That's possible.
Okay.
That's possible.
All right.
Absolutely.
If
let
you
me know
are
the date, and I'll do my best to get there. You got my word on that.
all right, and we get it, it's your off season, vacation, family time. If you can't, we understand. But if we see you, we are coming up and we are going to talk with you a little bit more there, man.
Let's do it, man.
Tally, you got one more for him, right?
Yep. So Fontel, we know, man. We know you got a birthday coming up. You might try to hide it from everybody else, but
I do.
hey, we know when the birthday is. For everybody who don't know, we got February 26th. I'm not gonna call his age out. I'm gonna let him do that. But the question I have for you is as a coach, what would be the best gift you can get on your birthday from a coaching perspective?
From a coaching perspective, having it fall on a weekend.
Okay.
From my perspective, this year's we'll be driving back from Northern Virginia, so pray I don't have any traffic, right? And I can get back to my wife and my son and enjoy it with my family.
Nice, man. I see the picture back there. I see y'all had the all white on in the back.
Yeah, we got
the picture
icy
behind you, man. That looks good.
Icy. There we go.
I appreciate
Awesome,
that, man.
I love it, man. Hey, Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk with us today. And yes, if y'all were wondering, my head turned to the right. My 6-year-old son opened the door and said, "Daddy, can you come do this for me?" I'm like, "Not right now. Not right now." Daddy's talking to
Get that part. Mine will be 3 here pretty soon, so I understand that.
Yeah, it's great,
Yeah.
man. But Coach Mines, from the Boundary Corner here, we really appreciate you joining us again today. And best of luck with the coaching clinics and everything in the spring.
I appreciate you guys, man. And absolutely appreciate the support. Anytime, anything you need from me.
Keep knocking them out, Coach.
All right, no doubt, man.
Keep it rocking, Coach. You're getting it done. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, thanks.
And that was Coach Fontel Mines that joined us last Tuesday. First of all, Brian, Tally, it was a blast to talk to that man in general. It just felt he was relaxed. It was natural. I feel like, Brian, if he does make it to Hardywood, we're going to probably be 20, 30 minutes with him on the patio out there drinking either a Fighting Hokies lager or All Hail to Thee drink and shooting the breeze with him. You got to love that about him in general.
Yeah, you definitely see, how he has success on the trail. Very relaxed. Somebody you definitely want to have a conversation with. Just kind of sit down, shoot the breeze. That aspect you can definitely see why he's a successful man and a successful coach.
Yeah, Tally. P-Town, Tally. P-Town.
P-Town,
He
baby.
would right away, baby.
Yeah, definitely. Already.
So let me ask you this, guys, and y'all chime in, whoever wants to chime in first. How do y'all think what has his impact been on that wide receiver room?
I'll take a lead on this one. I mean, I look at it. The thing that we see obviously is, you get a big impact from a recruiting standpoint, notch it up a little bit on the trail in the state of Virginia, especially in Richmond area. But you're also seeing, bringing in 3 top 20, top of the league transfer portal players from the wide receiver perspective to kind of bolster that room. But the thing that kind of impressed me, and this is actually something that came out during the prior view on Tech Sideline, talking about Christian Moss and kind of how he's kind of redoubled his efforts in trying to get playing time and really kind of digging in to be a contributor in that wide receiver room. Because I think a lot of folks saw him as like a potential transfer portal player after the way the season wrapped up, and with the guys that we brought in. But no, it sounds like he's kind of changed the culture in that room in terms of guys competing for spots, competing for time, competing for reps. So I think that's a big impact as well.
Yeah, definitely. I listened to him when he was talking about he wanted to bring people in to compete right away. He didn't want to bring depth guys in. So people who are already there, if the coach is telling us that, I'm sure he's telling them that. So sometimes football players, you get in your feelings. Hey, I'm bringing people in here to compete for playing time. And Pry kind of, came out and said, we didn't know what we were going to get out of Christian. He's been kind of pretty much underwhelming, but he came in the office and said, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is what he's been living up to. So I think that mindset that Fontel has brought to that room has just been a hard-nosed, let's grind. So I'm excited to see what happens with that wide receiver room. I think it'll be one of our deepest and most talented room positions this season. So
yeah, he put on a clinic and had to flip a room in one off season.
Yeah, definitely.
And he did it.
Yeah.
And he did it impressively. What about you, Sheldon? I mean, have you had I don't know if you've had any interactions with Coach Mines since you've been up there. You didn't get to join us on the interview or anything.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I've kind of seen him at PK sometimes. That's my only interactions. But even then, he's he's the life of the party, man. He's always living up with everyone, talking to everyone. He's just like, sometimes you see a guy, you see a coach, and you can just tell he gets it. Like he's a good recruiter. He's a good relationships guy. He relates well to a lot of different players. I mean, I think it was pretty impressive that he got Allie Jennings to come here on 1 year of eligibility. I mean, it's just it wasn't a great offense last year. He got some quarterback questions, but the fact that he convinced a guy like that to come here, that speaks volumes to his recruiting abilities, I think.
Yeah, I love you saying that at PK's he's the life of the party. First of all, he's also 6'5".
Yes.
He is a huge guy. So clearly it's just like I'm assuming it's a magnetic effect with him, like a lot of our guys. And he's known to pull the best out of all his guys. Robbie's our coach friend who has some connections down at ECU where Coach Mines coached. And I love the point there at the end. We were talking about, did guys come to you on this staff when they visited schools? And he was like, yeah. And I was making sure this is who you talk to. This is who you go to. Because that is so much important, especially with the new staff or new people coming on, in which we're going to talk about it in about 3 or 4 minutes here. We're going to have new coaches coming on in the near future. And to have somebody like Fontel Mines, who, especially in the state of Virginia, you walk into a high school, he can tell you who to talk to, where to go, what to do, what they do. That's huge, because sometimes you don't have that. And when you don't have that, Tally, you're in the car, you're in the salesman business, and you know about those relationships, about knowing this is how you talk to this guy. This is where you go here. And to have him like that, it's almost having and I think he is the recruiting. Is he the recruiting
offensive recruiting coordinator?
He's the offensive recruiting coordinator. So doesn't that make sense from what everything he's telling us there?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So now he said it himself. And when we were coming up, if you were in the state of Virginia, you went to one of 2 schools, and you go look back through the history of time, he was playing at Hermitage in, 08, or excuse me, in the early 2000s with Dwayne. And we saw Tweedy come through there, and we said guys go to UVA. What do y'all feel about him selling Virginia recruits our program, even though he's a UVA guy?
Who's going to take it?
Anybody?
I'll take it. Why not?
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, so from a Virginia recruiting perspective, he's the guy that's selling a vision of when not only Virginia Tech was one of the top 10, 15 programs in the country, but from when the UVA Virginia Tech rivalry was still a rivalry. and not a rivalry of mid, but a rivalry of top 3 and 4 teams in their conference, top 1 and 2 teams in their conference. He remembers those days, so he's selling what can be, what was, and what can be again. So I think that's big because he can kind of say, hey, yeah, I kept my talents in the state. I went to University of Virginia. You know, I did these things that helped build me and build my brand and be able to do the things that I wanted to do. So it's I'd say it's just as good as having an alumni on the staff in that regard, because he is still selling that same type of vision of guys that have been able to do it at Virginia Tech or do it at UVA. They've been able to go to their in-state school and show out.
Yeah, I of course I'm from Bama, so we're a little bit different here. Like when you see somebody, I don't know, Alabama's just different. When we see Julio Jones in the league, it's not like Alabama born and bred. Like we don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? We like what we like, but Virginia people are so prideful about their state. You know, it's like I've seen so many people that was like, Mac McClung won the dunk contest, and it was like everybody was claiming him from Virginia. You know what I'm saying? It didn't matter. I don't even know where he's from, but everybody was claiming him.
Gate City.
Yeah, so
everybody had a Gate City jersey.
Yeah,
like 1 or 2 days
the
later.
only time that I've seen Alabama be like that gung ho about something was fucking Ruben Studdard in the what is it? The American Idol. Like you've seen 405 stuff everywhere. That's the only time Alabama's ever been like, we're proud of Alabama. But Virginia people, when they talk about like music, you talk about Clips, Chris Brown, and so on and so on and so forth. And then you go into Allen Iverson and Vic. Like Virginia people are very prideful. So I don't think that it's such a like crazy thing to be like, man, I don't care where you go to be successful. I just want you to put on for the state. So I think he's got that kind of mantra when he's moving forward. Like, I know UVA ain't shit, but I'm trying to make Virginia Tech the shit. So come on over here and let's get it done.
And see, the point that he's making there, and Sean, anything you want to chime in, I'll let you do this, is because the best both programs have ever been is when everybody top 20 in state were all going to those schools. And that roughly is from 1993 to 2003. The years UVA beat FSU, the years we went to the national title game, Tiki, Rondé. You start going through that 10-year stretch, those were legitimately, Tech was a top 10 team. Virginia was a top 20 team those years. Go back and look through the annals of history, and it tells you during that 10-year stretch, and Dwight Vick on this program has said it, when both schools are good, the state's better. I agree with that. I'm going to make a real point right here. Not that one, but this one. The one thing he said about that conference was, I'm at the AFCA conference, and all of a sudden Brent Brown wants to interview me to be a next head coach. He was like, I don't have my papers. I don't have my suit. Oh, shit. What am I supposed to do? And clearly, again, I think that personality just knocked it out the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a personality like that, it doesn't matter the scenario that the interview takes place. It's all about, how you can present, your vision for a room and what you can do on the trail, both individually and to kind of raise the bar across the board for the rest of the staff. And he's shown that he has the aptitude to do that pretty good. So
it's the culture.
Yep,
they're selling a culture. Sheldon, again, you living down there, you probably hear and see more about it than ever. And this is a 3-8 football team that, the worst we've seen in 30 years. And like, Tally, said it straight up. You pull 3 top 25 guys out of the portal. What's the culture? What are you hearing from winter workouts being a little closer down there? And we know you have a job and we know you're doing things, but when you get to go into PKs and you get to go around the folks, what is that culture being like that he's mentioning in these interviews?
I think the guys have done a really good job of sticking together despite adversity. Like if you look back at last year, like obviously it's the worst Tech team pretty much ever. And we didn't have any sort of, locker room, brouhahas. Like it wasn't like a bunch of infighting. It wasn't like guys pointing fingers, which was, during the Fuente era, like literally a regular occurrence. Even when we were going,
no turkey bacon articles.
yeah. No Sports Illustrated hit pieces, no Trey Turner spilling dirt, no guys trying to intentionally lose games. It's much better. So I think fans in general somewhat overstate the impact that wins and losses has on recruiting. I think recruiting boils down to relationships, and if you're a coach who can sell a young 18-year-old kid on the prospect of playing for your team in the future, you're trying to sell him a vision on what's going to happen in the future. And that's what recruiting boils down to, because guys want to be a part of that winning program. So you can go 3-8, but if you can sell them on, hey, we're going to get all these good guys and we're going to get this thing turned around. Like that's how you do it,
And it's something to be said about being kind of a part of something that you had a hand in building. And I think a lot historically, Virginia players have taken pride in that. So just looking at it from that perspective, there are guys that, they still see the Bamas, they still see the Georgias. Obviously, those are easy they get eyes on your play, and because they get eyes on your play, it's a path to the next level. It makes that easier. But in terms of just being a part of building something, or bringing something back, that's definitely something that I think can resonate with some kids, especially kids in state.
Absolutely. And I think Robbie might sell it the best here. He sells a game and the idea that takes it to be successful regardless where he's coaching. And it seems that way because clearly, he is a guy in his late 30s. He's already ranked up to a Division I, P5 program in a short time coaching, and he's building a reputation as a good recruiter and a good coach overall. And it was a pleasure to have him. Hopefully Brian's working on some other interviews. I don't know who else we're going to be getting in the near future, hoping more.
Yeah. We got some of in the turnpike here.
We got something burning. We'll be keeping you guys updated.
All
right. So there's a big elephant in the room. We have not talked about it yet. We are an hour and 20 minutes in. I think we should be commended because we haven't talked about it yet. And it's a miracle we didn't
take the low-hanging fruit. That's what happened when we got a big
fruit.
cycle. Some of this we had planned a lot of things in this episode out for about a week or so. So the big news, obviously, Joe Rudolph is now the offensive line coach at Notre Dame.
Seven-figure offensive line coach at Notre Dame.
Seven-figure offensive line coach. I think that took him from being the fifth highest paid offensive line coach to the number one highest paid offensive line coach. So that says not only a lot about the pool that we put in for him to bring him here, but also how he's kind of viewed by others around the country, especially the Blue Bloods there. So
even after a shitty 3-8 season,
yeah,
not the best offensive line play in the country.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to kind of point at the resume last year and say, yeah, that's me, right? So that definitely speaks to his reputation. It speaks to the relationships that he's built as well. So good for him. That's a big move. But now we kind of we turn the page, right? Who's next?
Well,
anybody.
Well, no. It can't be anybody. I'll say that it can't be anybody. But obviously, the names start floating right between message boards, Twitter in general, and one of the first things that popped up was Ty Washington, and and for a lot of us, that's a heart because Todd played here back in the 1990s. Todd was a 4-year starter, guard, center. Went on and then played 7 years in the NFL, which is, basically 350% more than what normally happens. And got out of the NFL and started coaching immediately down at San Diego. He's made a plethora of stops between, the Ravens, the Jets, the Jags. And then you kind of look there and say, well, he's a Virginia Tech guy. He coached with Bowen last year. And he could be a name out there. Does he come here, get out of the pro ranks and, any feelings on Todd Washington?
I'll say this. If he was given the job, if he was off the job, he'd take it. I think that's been made abundantly clear. both by him and by others that know him. I'm subtweeting Dwight Vick there. If y'all didn't,
no
register
way.
that.
I'd have to,
Go ahead.
Go
Tyler.
ahead, Tyler.
I would definitely, Dwight's my boy, so I take what he says to heart a lot, and I know he knows his stuff. But just looking at it as a fan, man, and knowing about recruiting, the only thing I can say, I don't even want to say negative, but like Todd hadn't been in the recruiting game in a long time, and the thing that's going to get us to the next level is talent. We have to get some talent. We have to be able to recruit. And I think Fontel kind of said some stuff that a lot of people don't think about. When you recruit in certain places, you have to talk to 3 and 4 people before you get to the kid or before you get to a coach. So that's the thing that worries me about him. The name that's more intriguing, I don't want to say more intriguing, but to me, it's intriguing to me, is Marcus Johnson. So that name is very intriguing because he's like 6'6", 350 pounds, or big man. Like I want a big man coaching the offensive line. You know what I'm saying? But just that name and looking at his resume and stuff like that of what he's done and where he's played, like I like what I see from him. I would like a coach like that. That's just me.
I listen, Marcus Johnson right now is my one. And I'm going to ask all y'all 3 at the end. And I think, Tally, you might be feeling the same way as me. He's a young guy. He's in his early 40s. He played a bunch of years in the NFL. He played down at Ole Miss. And then he kind of came up through the ranks a little different. He started as a strength and conditioning coach at Duke and stayed there, worked his way up to O-line coach. It shows you he has a grind mentality as Brian playing on the line, Tally playing tight end. Y'all know those guys can grind. But the one piece that I look at and why I like him more than anything is he can recruit. Go look at his 247 profile. He recruited Charles Cross. He developed Charles Cross into a – Charles Cross, I hate to say this as a 49ers fan, he's going to be a pain in the ass at left tackle for the next decade up at the Seahawks. He is. He just freaking is. But then I see 18 and 19. You go to his Wikipedia page, look at his bio. He played at Mississippi State under Joe Moorhead. Mm-hmm. We know, and we saw at the end of last year, we're getting to that RPO mesh. So he's done it for 2 years. He's done it Drinkwitz's system, which is, again, a similar mesh type offense. So I think probably for what Tyler Bowen's looking to coach offensive line wise, I think that's it. Sheldon, you got somebody else in mind though, right?
Yeah, a guy that hasn't really been mentioned in any of these discussions is Eugene Chung. I only bring him up because I have a coaching buddy in the Richmond area whose opinion I respect greatly, and you just mentioned Eugene Chung, who is a Tech graduate of 1992. I think he was drafted in 92 to the NFL. Yeah. He was a really big part of building out those Eagles offensive lines. I think they had a couple starters in the Super Bowl this year that were kind of developed when he was there. He hasn't been there in a while. I think 3 years since he's been there. But the Eagles are typically, one of the better offensive line teams in the NFL year over year. And he was a big part of that. So, I just thought it was a good kind of maybe under the radar name to mention. He's obviously got great credentials.
Great credentials. Kyle, his son, played obviously at Tech, definitely super associated with the school. And he coached a long time. He played a long time in the league, and then he coached a long time in the league.
Yep.
So if tomorrow they announce Eugene Chung, I think us four are like, guy loves the school, guy knows how to coach O-line. Now, Brian,
kind of similar hire to Todd Washington, just not quite, a little bit slightly different areas, but
slightly different area, a little older, but coached a long time.
Yeah.
Now, a couple other names being thrown out there, and these are more of our Penn State connections. Is you got Herb Hand and Matt Lime Grover, like the fruit. Hand's currently down at UCF with Gus Malzahn, was up at Penn State, obviously, and at Vanderbilt. Yep. And then you got Lime Grover, again, another Penn State guy, 3 years while Prowl was there. He's currently at Kent State, so he's taking a little step back. He is their co-OC in offensive line. Either of these jump out for any of y'all, Brian, Tally?
Herb Hand is kind of the guy that I would like to go after, and there's a couple reasons. Obviously, the connections, style of play that we're looking for on offense. The other thing, he's had stops at some bigger programs. He's seen how that works, but he's also a guy that is at UCF right now, making right at $300,000. So the pool that we have to offer at offensive line could be very significant for that caliber of coach. Whereas, you look at Marcus Johnson, he's making in the $500,000 range, it looks like. So whether Missouri can kind of jump up to meet that, that's to be seen. But I think we could actually, from a bidding standpoint, our pool is pretty big, especially because of what Joe Rudolph was making and what our potential is there. So I think a $500K plus bump in salary for Herb Hand might be very intriguing. Whereas, a couple $100,000 may not be worth it for Marcus Johnson to kind of take the leap out of the SEC into the ACT and into kind of a rebuild. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. And then you got, another guy that's been mentioned is offensive line coach at SMU, Garen Justice. So, there's a lot of guys that are out there. I would put Herb Hand in my top list of wants, just because I think it is practical, but also would be a really good replacement for Joe Rudolph.
I'll say this about Justice. Rhett Lashley system, again, it's the RPO, it's the mesh spread. Look at what Miami, and Brian mentioned it on this program when we played them after the flip, when they hired Rhett Lashley under Manny Diaz. You basically said that offensive line is shit. And basically in one season, Garen Justice went down there and basically flipped them to be a very competent offensive line, where Miami that season ranked in the top 30 in offense.
And he's really good at coaching pass pro, because the thing we talked about before that season was like, this team is completely ass in pass pro. Ass. And they had a really big bump up. And then you brought up another stat from last year where, rushing the ball middle of the pack, but really good in terms of not allowing sacks. So, I mean, it looks like that's traveling. It's not just a Miami thing.
Yeah. Any feelings towards those three guys, Tally or Shelton?
Man, hey, I told you. I mean, Todd Washington, I'd be all right with that. Like Brian said, Herb Hand, I think that's a good look, or Marcus Johnson. Now, of course, in typical Virginia Tech fashion, we ain't getting none of them three. we ain't going that route, but that's okay. But that's just kind of what I think and what I look for, and I'd love to see happen. But Pride talked about it again. If anybody hadn't
TSL,
hadn't went and looked at the TSL interview, he talked about we wanted to run the ball more than we did last year. More of a power running team, and it's just not us. It just wasn't what we were going to be good at. So they want to get to running the quarterback more. So he said, and I'm paraphrasing, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he said something to the effect of, we want to run the quarterback till he says, hey, I don't want to run no more. You know what I mean? So we're going to get to that RPO, and I think it's going to help us a lot, because when we're good at that, I think our team is good. So.
Hey, Sheldon, let me ask you this just to get your kind of feel, again, being an alumni of Tech. When that report, and when it's been said that Tech damn near got up to $1 million to offer Rudolph, 975, I think, is the number that is floating around. Did that shock you, or does that say, okay, we're back to where we were 15 years ago, where we're top 15, top 20, and actually paying people?
Yeah, I mean, they are top 20. I haven't looked at numbers in a while, but we are at least top 25 in the country in terms of coaching salaries for this particular staff. It's kind of crazy though when you look at it. Like Tech was paying $950 or something like that to Rudolph, and he still loses for Notre Dame, who's giving him a big salary increase. And there's probably a handful of schools that can offer more than Notre Dame. So it kind of just shows you like the discrepancy in terms of the very top at the in college football compared to all the rest. But like I don't think the coaching salary is just not an issue anymore. Like we have the money to hire quality assistants. Even if you look at a guy like Brad Glenn, he was making a ton. I don't know what the exact number was for Glenn, but he's making a decent salary. Same for all of our other coordinators. So it's the good thing about all this influx of cash in the program, like the Reach for Excellence campaign, like we're in a much better position, I think, infrastructure wise. When you look at facilities, support staff, coaching salaries, like we're much more competitive in those areas. So I don't worry too much about this hire because I think at the very least, we have a much better chance of making the right hire for us because we can compensate them adequately.
Good deal.
Good that you kind of brought up the quarterback position, the quarterback coaching position as well. So I guess Curtis, what you thinking about that, man? What you thinking about the coaching?
Well, first of all, we're 10 days removed. I was hoping somebody would be named by now. Not only because it's easier to talk to, because now we got to do a bunch of speculation. I mean, me, Brian, and Tally, last week, Sheldon, we talked about Brian Chris. Does Brian Chris get his chance? Or is it, a guy like Jeff Carpenter, younger guy, worked with LSU, has done some other stuff. Does he get his chance? I think the deeper we get into it, I don't think we're getting any internal hires. I think we are, because of what Shelton just said, we have the money to spend. Go find someone who has a track record or has a good connection. And I'm sitting out here and heard this name so many times, but I feel like the guy would just fumble the ball and to the other team in Lane Stadium. His name's Brandon Streeter.
Curtis got jokes.
I got jokes. Go 99. But I mean, Streeter was recently let go by Clemson, and he had been there since 15. He's been coaching, since 06, where he was at Liberty and then Richmond. So obviously he has been in Virginia before. I think he's probably a good coach. Obviously he is working with cream of the crop quarterback prospects in Trevor Lawrence, in Deshaun Watson. So what's he going to do as far as the system goes? It's not quite what they're doing, but I don't think he would be a bad hire. The question is, Dabo just cut you from your alma mater, place where you played, a place where you won 2 national championships. Is he ready to get it back in?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, I don't have an answer for it. I've heard his name thrown around a lot from a recruiting standpoint, because that's kind of where I'm always thinking about with any hires that we're looking at. Is I feel like we've been so behind in recruiting and just, 1 or 2 athletes that would take us to maybe the next level. And I'm talking next level, just meaning even competing in the ACC. Bringing in somebody with a pedigree like that, I think would be awesome. So I don't know that we get him, but I think it would be a good hire if we did.
Yeah, and I think we're probably not going to see what I'd call splash hires in both of these positions. I think you'll see probably a splash hire in one where we go up to that, $700,000 to $800,000 range for one coach. I don't know if we're going to push, the limits of what Witt will come off of, like we would try to retain Rudolph to hire both of these positions. We'll see. I don't necessarily think that's what's going to happen. But I mean, I'd be fine with Streeter. Obviously the name that always gets thrown out there every time we do this is Mike Vick.
I was just about to say, speaking of splash hire, Michael Vick's name gets thrown out every time a job comes open.
How dare
Need an O-line coach, Mike Vick.
Listen, I mean, it's floated every time. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think Mike, all the work Mike's doing with charities, all the stuff he's got with TV, I don't think that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I think what we all are doing, like we all have been doing since last Tuesday as fans, is we've been drawing lines. We've been trying to find, okay, who's the guy? Streeter was thrown out there because Streeter's a known name. He was in the ACC. But then you start drawing the lines, okay, so who could it be? Who could it be? And, after doing some research, I look at a guy like Billy Fessler. Billy Fessler's over at Akron, so he's under Joe Moorhead. There's immediately connection to the type of offense that's going to be looked at this year. He played at Penn State. He's a significantly younger guy now, a very, very young guy. So, is it somebody like that where you probably, if you're going to go, like you said, Brian, just a couple seconds ago, if you go big splash in the offensive line room,
Yep.
then can you afford to take a chance with a younger guy? I mean,
I
what
think
do you
you
think?
can. If we're talking about younger guys, let's talk about somebody that's pretty much my age, has some connections with Bowen at Fordham, and coached in the NFL for the Jacksonville Jaguars this past year. Let's talk about Andrew Briner. I mean, I think that's another option that you could look at. He was OC and quarterbacks coach at Fordham, then took over head coach the time that Bowen was coaching at Fordham there. So there's a connection there, similar type of Joe Moorhead coaching tree.
State? I'm getting the all Mississippi State staff is what we're about to put together here from 1819.
Yeah, so I mean that's an option that's out there as well. So I mean I think there's a lot of potential options there. One of the things that's been floated, kind of circling back to the offensive line room, is that I don't think it's some people talk about Bowen taking over offensive line. That's not what I want to see.
Why? He's coached it. He's played it.
Yeah, so I don't like my OCs being offensive line coaches. I like my OCs that have been offensive linemen, but I don't like them being offensive line coaches because I'll say it like this. So when you day-to-day in practice, offensive line is very much for the first half of practice a very segmented group. They're not floating to different position groups like you would with tight ends, especially. You're not working with 2 or 3 position groups like you are quarterback or wide receiver. You are very much okay. Well, you're here. You might get with the tight ends and running backs for some inside run, but most of the time you're working with your own group. You're getting with defensive tackles and doing some one-on-ones. So most of your work with the rest of the group is during that team period. So allowing Bowen to be in a position where he can kind of look at various elements of the offense for longer periods of time during a practice, not just during that team period, I think is more important. Offensive line is a very demanding position to coach. Mm-hmm. So I would like him to focus more on running the offense and seeing the whole picture of practice than I would focusing on getting that offensive line right.
Shelton, you've been really quiet while we've been, other than laughing at the Mike Vick joke. Is there anybody you have an eye on? Is there any of the names that we've mentioned that you say, hey, that might be the guy?
If you're talking about QB coach,
yeah,
I think maybe the guy that was briefly mentioned in our Twitter chat the other day, Christian Taylor from William & Mary. He worked under he was under Mike London. They had a fantastic offense this season. Really big turnaround at a school that's typically not super easy to win at. So that's one guy, but I haven't been paying too much attention as much to the QB coaches because I don't even know what are they going to make like an internal hire or just switch someone around so I don't know as well about that. But Christian Taylor's one guy to keep an eye on.
All right,
I think when you look at coaches, man, it's kind of a 2 ends of the spectrum type thing. You need somebody who's either very well respected and has a great resume and just knows how to come in and get a job done, or you got to take a chance on a younger guy that will kind of come in and know how to recruit a little better, who can, connect with the kids a little better. I mean, look at Fontel.
Yep.
And I know we've got a long way to go to think about what he's going to do with his room or be able to see what he's going to be able to do with his room, but I don't think any Tech fan is upset at what he's done so far. And you can even go back to Ryan Smith.
No.
I mean, I didn't know much about Ryan Smith before he got the job, but looking at his efforts that he did while he was here, it was a good job. So It's
Tally.
a catch-22 when you're talking coaching because you want somebody who you really somebody to go ahead. I'm sorry.
Tally, I freaking went to college
ahead,
with
Curtis.
Ryan Smith's. I went to college with Ryan Smith's sister and never correlated until she literally posted a picture of him up. Like, wait a second, that's Ryan. I messaged her and be like, why you got a picture of Ryan Smith? Oh, that's my brother. What? And now that kid's going to the NFL.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Love the girl. Sweet girl. We worked together
Yeah,
in
that's pretty
fraternity
cool.
and sorority life. It's pretty awesome. But
Yeah, nice,
it's so
man.
much going on right now, because I think what's happened is so late in the process. And Price said it on TSN. We all heard it, right? The pro ranks are looking more and more into the college ranks for coaches. They are. Because what's happening is I think we're getting to that NFL level where there are guys who are getting in their late 60s that are retiring, or guys that just essentially are cycling out. And now it's like, well, who is the most technical, who's a great motivator, who can really put game plans together? And they're going to the college ranks because the college ranks have so many more people.
Also,
And
you're
now,
running a lot more college-style
You
offenses
are.
in the NFL now.
the concepts have changed like that over the last few years. So hopefully there'll be some news about somebody getting hired over the next few weeks, because I'm just sitting here. We're 2 weeks away from spring ball. Like, we need to get somebody hired now. I don't want a position group to be done.
Yeah.
All right. Couple last notes before we close it out tonight. And sort of sucks on both ends. Mike Hawkins not on the roster anymore. Coach made a brief statement with our buddy David Cunningham over at TSL about, there's some things going on, whatever is going on in Nike's personal life. We hope all gets to go well. And then unfortunately for Nike Johnson, who is probably going to be dependent on to be a too deep guy in the safety room, he tore his Achilles and he's done.
Yeah, during workouts.
So, kind of a bit of bummer for both those situations to close it out here tonight. But, you got to talk about it because I can't remember the exact time. Last week we talked about Jalen Jones moving over, right? He's now in the safety room.
Right.
And you see Nike Hawkins gone. Nike Johnson tears Achilles. I mentioned what? Maybe they'll redshirt him this year. Probably not going. If he's playing good, it's probably not going to be that way anymore.
Very true, man. And you know how it is. It's like, the kid, like you said, Nike, he was just coming off of an injury and trying to get back and trying to, compete for some time, and you get hurt again. It's devastating sometimes, man, to the mindset. But I seen him put out a tweet, I think, where he was talking about just being there for his brothers and being around the team. So hope he just keeps his head in it and keep moving forward for himself.
There you go.
Yep. That's big. I mean, anytime you get injury like that, it's definitely a mindset that you have to come back from. And, especially when you're coming off an injury, like you said, Tally, it can eat at you because you feel like, all right, I just climbed my way out this hole a little bit. Now I'm kind of back in it. So nothing but, good wishes his way. Hopefully speedy recovery. And I know Achilles is always, that's a tough one. So, wishing him the best.
All right. Guys, anything additional to add? Anything breaking while we've been sitting here for an hour and 45 minutes?
I just want to know, when are we getting Robbie on the show? I need Robbie on the show.
Well, we have been thinking about potentially bringing him over in April for spring ball preview, just because with Robbie being a coach, Robbie usually gives us a little insight. So, and I think Robbie is discussing coming to Blacksburg for the spring game. That is his birthday weekend.
Oh, we're going to turn up then.
There we go.
Take it back to two.
I'm bringing the hot sauce.
Oh, he's about to post some on here. Shelton, you got anything else, man?
Nope, I'm all good, man.
All right. Well, y'all, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast, brought to you by Main Street Pharmacy in Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Jonathan Talley.
Elton Moss.
Visit our website, boundarycornerbt.com, to listen to all of our episodes. While you're there, do not forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, subscribe on our YouTube account, and your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. And now, hold on, wait a sec, real quick. Hey, Robbie, unfortunately, we got to talking, and yep, he knows now. Shelton, we'll tell you after this episode ends.
Yes, sir.
Also, check out this weekend, Mr. Siegler got into the experimental. We are now selling merchandise.
We have merch, people.
We have merchandise now. Thank you to the people who've already bought some. And trust me, I think with this creative brain collection, we're going to come up with them even cooler shirts. So
Yeah,
be on the lookout for that. As always, we let our buddy Jason Long, he plays us out every week. Check him out on his website, jasonlongmusic.com. And I'm trying to see if Jason's going to be anywhere around the New River Valley.
Finally hitting the spring weather, man. He's gonna be out. He gonna be outside now.
Is he got some set up? No,
I don't know.
doesn't. Not yet. He's still recovering from wrestling season, is what it is. Coaching those kids all that time to a city championship. Check his music out on Apple, Spotify, and his YouTube and Facebook pages. We thank you all for always listening and viewing. As always, let's go.
Hokies.
Hokies.